Si comes tienes que lavar tu plato, Firulais. Anda, enjuágalo bien. No me gruñas. A ver, con la esponja eso. Y enjuaga bien que luego deja todo jabonoso. Eso así, muy bien, aunque de malas.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, and now it's time for another installment of what has fast become the most popular segment here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail! In my previous video, we recapped Ryan Garcia's anti-doping fiasco, circumstances around it, to which Joseph Navarro responded, "It's crazy how much you lie and slander Brian Garcia. He never tested positive for steroids." I didn't say that he did, or even use the word steroids. That was Devin. I was just reading what he said aloud. Joseph continued, "He supposedly tested positive for a trace amount of Osterin, which is not a steroid. Osterin is found as a contaminant in over-the-counter supplements." Yeah, and Ryan never proved that the Osterin found in his system came from over-the-counter supplements, which is why he served a suspension and paid a fine. The reason he looked different against Rolly is because he wasn't ready to fight. Well, how could he be? He didn't have his Osterin. He's been tested many times in his last 3 fights. Well, we know he got tested for the Devin Haney fight, and we also know that he was tested for the Rolly Romero fight. He got tested there, but in his last fight with Mario Barrios, who did the testing for that one? Can you point me in the direction of the anti-doping agency that handled the anti-doping protocols for that fight? Because it wasn't VADA. It doesn't look like it. VADA normally announces all the fighters that complete a cycle of testing through them, and there's no announcement on their Twitter page about Garcia versus Barrios. Joseph continued, "Yes, Osterin is a banned substance, but it's not steroids or steroidal, so what you are doing is libel." No, what I was doing was reading Devin Haney's comment aloud, and you still haven't gotten past that because he's the one called it a steroid. Also, he did not get suspended for what you said. He agreed to a suspension, and it was for a paperwork violation. Oh, would he have got suspended if he hadn't have tested positive for Osterin? For not reporting every supplement he planned to take in camp in the lead-up to the fight. The suspension is public record and anyone can read it. Yeah, I already read those materials when the situation happened, and Ryan Garcia wouldn't have had to accept any suspension if he hadn't have tested positive for Osterin. 60 times the allowable threshold for Osterin in the state of New York. Joseph continued, "I know you're just looking for views and comments and really don't care about the truth." Is that right? "These guys should start suing people like you, and I bet it would stop quick." Let him try. If Ryan Garcia had enough ammunition to sue all the people he blamed for his test, he would have sued NutraBio, he would have sued VADA, and he would have sued Victor Conti before he passed away. As it stands, he didn't sue anybody. And that's the truth. Also, Osterin needs to be taken in large amounts for a long period of time, 10 to 12 weeks before it provides any beneficial effects. You mean like 60 times the allowable threshold in the state of New York? Because that's what they found in Ryan's samples. Ryan was randomly tested by VADA multiple times in the weeks leading up to the Haney fight and was clean. Anyone using common sense knows it was a contaminated supplement taken the night before the weigh-in in trying to make weight. Well, anyone with common sense would know that if Ryan could prove it came from a contaminated supplement, he would have never had to agree to a suspension. You know that Dillian White found himself in the same situation, except Dillian did what Ryan didn't do. He proved it came from a contaminated supplement. And when he did, he didn't have to serve a suspension, and he didn't have to pay a fine, like Ryan. Thus, common sense would dictate that if the Osterin found in Ryan's system came from a contaminated supplement, and he proved that, he wouldn't have had to pay any fine, he wouldn't have had to agree to any suspension, for any reason. Common sense. He can fight Haney 100 times and it will always be the same result, and that's why they won't take the rematch. Listen, I don't even give a damn about a rematch, but being blunt, he doesn't have to fight Devin 100 times. He can fight him one more time. Fight him once with VADA testing, the same as they used before to make sure that he's not on Osterin again, but he won't do it. He will not agree to VADA testing. That's why he flew off the handle when Shakur Stevenson brought it up, and that's why their rematch, him and Devin, didn't happen, and that's not me paraphrasing either. It was Ryan Garcia who tried to shift the blame over to VADA. How many times did this guy's stories change in the thick of that mess? First he said it was from the ashwagandha that he took, some sort of supplement via NutriBio, which he never proved, by the way. Then he said it was because Victor Conti's got the inside track on VADA, and it was an inside job they put together with the Haneys. I'm sure that Joseph Navarro was here for all of that, so common sense would dictate that a guy whose story has to change this much.
Yeah, he's probably lying.
First it was the supplement manufacturer selling tainted supplements, then it was VADA and Victor Conti. Which one is it?
This is not an isolated incident. Ryan Garcia is hardly the first fighter that popped hot for Osterin. You know that's what Amir Khan tested positive for following the Kell Brook fight, which he was banned for.
And did you know that before that, that's the same substance that Alexander Povetkin tested positive for in what was his second anti-doping fiasco?
The first was over meldonium, the second was over Osterin, which does practically the same thing.
Ryan's situation is just another chapter in the same book, part of a bigger pattern of fighters who not only have tested positive for Osterin, that substance specifically, but fighters testing positive for banned substances. There have been many cases over the years, and in all those cases, do you think that Joseph Navarro gives all these fighters the same benefit of the doubt that he's now giving Ryan?
No, of course not.
Believing Ryan Garcia's cover story that has changed more than once? Or is he only doing this from some sort of bias for Jono Sabos in the West Coast?
Know that he's probably a Jono Sabo himself.
And do you know why Ryan's win, Ryan being a Jono Sabo, means so much to all these other Jono Sabos? It's because these guys daydream about beating a black guy, like Ryan supposedly did, except Ryan had to cheat to do it, so the win is tainted. I've seen Joseph's other comments on other videos, and most of the time he agrees with me, except when it comes to this, and I'd wager the reason for it.
This guy's terrified of black guys.
All these guys going up to bat for Ryan Garcia, who need to believe he's innocent when he is so obviously guilty, do so from a fantasy.
They fantasize about doing to a black guy what he did to Devin because they walk around day to day terrified of black guys. I can read your mind.
But that quote-unquote victory that has now been ruled a no contest,
Whatever.
celebrate it all you like.
You say that Ryan accepted the suspension as if he had a choice, as if it changes that he got suspended and paid a fine.
The alternative would have been trying to fight the case, not having the ammunition to do it, and serving an even longer suspension. So he accepted a lesser one. What is the lesser of two evils? He didn't even try to fight this thing because he knew he couldn't win. Or do you expect me to believe that he had the evidence that could have exonerated him, but he chose not to use it? He chose to get suspended and pay a fine instead?
If he actually had the evidence, he could have had the money he paid to the state of New York paid back to him and sued NutriBio for selling contaminated supplements. It's been 2.5 years.
In those 2 years, he hasn't sued NutriBio, and he seems to now be swerving any further VADA testing. I know of no VADA testing for the Barrios fight, and I know of no testing ahead of the Conor Ben fight. So miss me with the bullshit.
Take something from him rather than and get in the way. So at the end of the day, Devin, it seems like he's committed on vacating the belt and getting out of Keyshawn way. And since that's the case, me and him can meet at a catch weight. But he's fighting at 147. Yep. I'll fight at 140. So we're not at the same weight class. So now we got to meet in between.
So y'all going like that 144, 145 weight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I feel so inclined to believe what Shakur Stevenson is saying is because it's for more money. I mean, if you're talking about a Haney versus Stevenson fight, now that Shakur has officially signed on to Zuffa, who do you think is going to pay for it? Devin doesn't have a promoter. Devin's not with anybody, but Shakur Stevenson is. He's with Zuffa, who's paying big money to draw established names to their promotion. The same way DAZN did when they debuted in America. Same exact thing.
Go, Bevin!
So Devin is getting while the getting is good, because this isn't his first rodeo. He was among the first well-known American fighters to migrate over to DAZN, migrate over to Matchroom when they were kicking out all that big money. And that's what he seems to be doing now.
Migrating over to Zuffa?
According to Shakur, he is, to perhaps fight at a catch weight of 144, 145. I'm not really pressed to see two of the most boring boxers in the sport right now share the ring with each other, as there's very little chance this is going to be an action-packed fight. Though if I have to pick a winner, I would go with Shakur. I think between these two pure boxers, these defensive boxers, Shakur is a bit more dynamic with that style than Devin.
Go, Bevin!
He always has been. I think Shakur handles himself a bit better under pressure than Devin Haney does. He's a bit better on the inside as well, mid-range to inside, which has long been an area of vulnerability for Devin, as we've seen him hurt there more than once. In the Linares fight, in the Lomachenko fight, the Garcia fight. Now, there is something to be said about the aspirin that they found in Ryan, but there is also something to be said about Devin getting hit with the same punch over and over when trying to close the distance.
It's a defensive deficiency.
I don't think that would happen to Shakur in those same circumstances. I don't think Ryan would land that shot, let alone as many times as he landed it on Bevin.
Go, Bevin!
So I like Shakur Stevenson to win a points decision in a thriller, because it's not going to be a barn burner, and it's not going to be a shootout. Could be a feint fest.
There is a caveat, though.
Looks a lot like Shakur is going to vacate his WBO title that he currently holds at 140, but Devin is reported to vacate his title at 147, at which point it could go to Keyshawn Davis,
His mandatory challenger.
Maybe the WBO elevates Keyshawn to full champion straight away, or maybe they mandate that he fight former WBO champion Brian Gore-Tex. But you have to figure that if Shakur Stevenson is set to debut in the welterweight division, not fighting for a full welterweight title, is he going to get any credit for it on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list? If Devin is not a champion the night of a fight and Shakur doesn't win a belt,
Belts matter.
are you really even a 5-weight world champion not having the championship? Now, who you fight matters. Who you fight matters a great deal.
What if they end up fighting for a Zuffa belt? Does that count?
No, it doesn't. But it does matter that he's fighting Devin, a multi-weight champion and a pound-for-pound fighter like himself. Depending on what the circumstances of the fight are, Shakur Stevenson might see himself momentarily ejected from the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list on the premise that he won't actually be a world champion. Not if Devin don't bring that brown belt, and not if he drops his.
And what is it going to cost to put this fight together?
Too fucking much is the short answer. Well above the actual market value of the fight. It's not that you can't do good business making Stevenson versus Haney. You could, but the actual number would be a lot more modest than whatever Turkey LL Sheikh and Zuffa are kicking out.
Is this a game changer for them?
For Zmuffa? That depends. Do you think that paying above market value for fighters makes for a soluble business in the long run?
Well, if they could get big names like Shakur and Devin, certainly that would help their reputation.
And what is that reputation? Being the guys that regularly pay above market value for fights?
For fighters? I ran into a story detailing Johny Fisher's recent migration from Matchroom over to Zuffa, and why Eddie Hearn was unwilling to pay Johnny what Zuffa is willing to pay Johnny.
Eddie Hearn says Johny Fisher's decision to sign with Zuffa Boxing came down to more than just a bigger payday, though. Hearn said Fisher needed a series of rebuilding fights after the first loss of his career, and that's a product he couldn't realistically sell to DAZN viewers. Hearn explained that Fisher's career is at a different stage now.
Johny Fisher has one recorded loss to Dave Allen, arguably two if you saw both their fights. Johnny didn't win that first one, and Dave took it out of the judge's hands in the second.
Hearn explained that Fisher's career is at a different stage now, with confidence-building bouts against modest opposition making more sense than being thrown straight back into difficult matchups. Johny Fisher, rightfully so by the way, because he's had a defeat,
A bad one.
and he wants to fight opposition that I would be competitive with, said Hearn to Talk Sport, because he wants low-level fights to get in a bit of a swing. 2-3 fights like that, for me, I can't deliver that product for DAZN because you'd laugh it out of town. Hearn said Matchroom's problem wasn't that Fisher deserved easier fights, it was that those kinds of matchups wouldn't satisfy fans watching a DAZN main event.
If I headlined a show for Johny Fisher against the guys he's going to be fighting, I would be ridiculed, Hearn said, but you would be prepared to pay for a fight that he will be in because the fight that he is in is not good enough for my product, for DAZN's product, to put bums in seats.
The quality of the opposition is definitely a big part of it, but so is the money. Zuffa is offering Johny more money than he would have made staying at Matchroom, and Matchroom isn't gonna overpay for rebuilding fights and area level fights. That's what it is!
Not what Zuffa's about to pay this guy.
Fisher was announced as a Zuffa Boxing signing on Monday, with Everything Boxing reporting that the heavyweight has agreed to a one-fight deal. Hearn suggested the new promotion's willingness to pay significantly more for lower-risk opponents made the move an easy business decision. Despite losing one of Matchroom's best-known British prospects, Hearn said he holds no ill will towards Fisher. It's amazing, and I'm so happy for him, because it's a fight that can go and pay a mortgage, said Hearn about Fisher. Hearn's comments also offer an early glimpse into how Zuffa Boxing may approach developing some of its fighters, while Dana White has repeatedly promoted a best versus the best quote-unquote philosophy. Hearn believes the company is prepared to stage rebuilding fights that established promoters and broadcast partners would be unwilling to headline.
Coincidentally, Zuffa Boxing tweeted earlier today that they're coming to London in September. I've no doubts Johny Fisher will be making his Zuffa Boxing debut. Whether or not it's a long-term relationship depends. This is said to be a one-fight deal. If Johny loses his next fight, he might be jettisoned.
You're now thinking to yourself, what the fuck does any of this have to do with Shakur Stevenson fighting Devin Haney over there at Zuffa? Isn't this sort of apples to oranges, since they all compete at very different levels, to Johny?
They do, but it's all part of the same pattern. Zuffa Boxing kicking out more money for these fighters than established promoters do. Established promoters who know what the commercial value of a fight is, and that these fighters are asking for too much.
But so long as you can do that and Turkey is willing to help you, go ahead. I'm just saying it doesn't make for a long-term strategy.
How long are you going to be able to keep doing this? Because nothing lasts forever.
Now, we've seen it before. When PBC debuted and they were kicking out all that money to keep those fighters on their side of the street, eventually they had to tighten their wallets. It was the same as DAZN when they debuted in America, and it was the same as Boxer when they first got the Sky Sports deal. In the beginning, they were overpaying, but eventually
it stopped. Eventually, you're gonna have to justify the spending or stop spending.
What are you supposed to pay out for a Johny Fisher fight, who's an area-level fighter at best who couldn't make it past Dave Allen? Before you go thinking that this is pro-DAZN, pro-Matchroom, Eddie Hearn propaganda, what are you supposed to pay for an area-level fighter who can't beat Dave Allen?
What?
Money's got everything to do with it. The money that Zuffa is willing to pay Johny, that Matchroom isn't, because it doesn't make sense.
So how long can you keep doing business that doesn't make business sense?
I'm here for it. I mean, if Zuffa wants to pay whatever they're paying Shakur and Devin to fight each other on Paramount at no additional charge, no pay-per-view, that's a win for us, that's a win for Devin, that's a win for Shakur, because they get to make a lot of money, Johny gets to make a lot of money.
It's a win.
But if what we're going to address is Zuffa Boxing in the long run, and what impact this might have, it's like I said, this can't be a long-term strategy.
Your stable is primarily comprised of journeyman and gatekeeper level fighters, a couple of prospects and unbeaten guys, and what seem to be Matchroom castaways.
Except that you're paying them now more than Matchroom was paying them. So how does that make for a soluble business?